Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Today, you will learn how to create an electronic case report form for a medical study and shape the infrastructure for convenient and fast subsequent data collections by investigators and patients. Everything I'm going to show you today is consistent with GCDMP practices and CDISC standards. So let's get into this fascinating process. Before we start working on a new project, we need to create it on testing environment. Acting in the system administrator role, I go to the section Electronic Data Collection and click New. After that, I complete the selection of fields in the window that appears and save it. Next, we need to grant the necessary access permissions to the project. To build the project, we will need the Data Manager role. To do this, open the project, the Sponsor CRO Users section and Sponsor CRO Users tab. Click the Add Sponsor CRO Users button, mark New Person and fill in all the required fields. Then save the entered data. The new user will need to send an invitation to access the system. After receiving an invitation, the user, in our case Data Manager, should follow the link in the email and create the password for the automatically generated login. Next, Data Manager can start the project configuration in the system. For that, let's go to the tab with the Web Builder Form Editor. In this tab, we can see the list of projects already created in the environment and available to this particular user. There can be a single project or several. This is what we can do with any of these projects. Open the list of visits to edit forms in the project. Edit paths, in case study paths are set up in the project for different protocol versions. Export a project, for example, to copy it over the next coming project that has similar structure. Here everything is quite simple. We just need to click on this button and after a while the selected project will be downloaded and can be imported into another new project later. So, we've discussed all the steps that need to be taken before we start configuring a project. Now, let's move on to the configuration process itself. As I mentioned earlier, to create and edit the selected project, we need to click the Open button. Let's view all the features of the system in this section. First of all, configuration of the project begins with the creation of visits. To create a new visit, use the Add a New Visit button. Enter the visit code. This is the technical name of the visit. This name will be used later when configuring the cross-form triggers, data edit checks, schedule settings, and notifications. Thus, each visit should have its own unique code. As for the rules, we recommend using Latin characters and numbers. For example, for the screening visit, enter the code SCR. For the subsequent visits, enter the code V1, V2, V3. For the logs visit, add the code log. Let's enter a visit title, which will be displayed to the system users, investigators, CRAs, data managers, and so on. The name of the visit should be clear and understandable. It can be taken, for example, from the protocol, which describes the study procedures and the visit schedule. Specify the visit number in the project. We will need this information when configuring the schedule. Specify the day of the visit according to the schedule from the protocol. This information in the system will also be needed to configure the schedule. Usually, this information is taken from the study protocol. Mark whether it is a repeating visit or not. It can be used, for example, for an unscheduled visit. In the case of creating such a visit in the project, it is necessary to tick the checkbox. Let's repeat the same steps for visits 1, 2, 3 and logs. After creating the so-called grid of visits, we can start creating unique forms. Unique forms are those forms that will appear in the project for the first time and can be repeated on certain visits without changing their design. To do this, go to the Form tab and click Add a new form. Specify the technical code of the form and its name. Similar to the technical code of the visit, the technical name of the form will be used further in the configuration of triggers, data edit checks, schedule settings and notifications. Each form must have its own unique code. The rules are the same. It is recommended to use the Latin characters and numbers. We also propose to use CDISC recommendations when creating a technical form code. Thus, in the case of creating, for example, the adverse event form, it's recommended to use the technical code AE. If the form should be displayed in the ePro application for the study subjects to complete, tick the appropriate checkbox. This setting will be displayed only if the ePro option is enabled for the project. Note that these settings can also be edited in the Properties tab after the form has been created. It is important to note that any previously exported form can be uploaded in place of the created form. To do this, we need to download the form from another project and upload it into the current project. So go to another project, select the desired form, click on Export Form, return back to our project, open the created form, click on Import. This scenario is relevant if we already have an accumulated library of forms created not only in a web builder but also in the previous desktop version of Builder. Now, let's try to create a new form from the very beginning, such as the vital signs. Press the Add a New Form button, enter the technical and human-readable names of the form. Press Save button and the system will open the section designed to build the form. On the left, we see the Edible Components panel. This is a set of all the controls we may need to create any form design. In the middle, there is an area for disposing the selected fields on the form. On the right, there is an area for editing field attributes. Let's take a closer look at all the available controls in the editor. Text box is for capturing free text. The input format can be limited by a mask. Checkbox, a field for setting multiple choice options. Choice list, a list of predefined options. This field can be configured as a drop-down list or as a radio buttons. Only a single answer can be given in this field. Date field, the field for entering the full date. Time field is the field for entering the time in the hour and minute format. Partial date field. This is a custom field to collect the full or partial date and time. Group field combines a number of fields into a group. This allows to perform actions such as setting up triggers with all the grouped items at once. Field text allows to add a small static text, for example, feed control label or disclaimer. Also, this field can contain a link to another form within the project. Action button field. It is a button when clicked that allows to perform some actions in the system: randomization, drug assignment, subject transfer, subject unblinding, or just saving a form to perform auto-calculation in a specific field on the form. The electronic signature field is a function to sign a specific action, for example, emergency unblinding, or all the electronic case report form data in the form, visit, or subject mode by the principal investigator. Service field is a field visible only to unblinded roles. It can be used for auto-calculations, for example, for blinded parameters such as treatment arm or dose assigned. And the last field is laboratory. This is a functional designed to create a form for capturing results of local laboratory tests. It becomes available after setting up the project laboratory at the site level. Now, we should select the necessary controls from the list and simply drag them into the middle area to create a logically organized form. We add assessment of vital signs with the ID VS. Then, we add the question, were the vital signs performed, with the following ID. Then, specify the reason field and ID. Date of assessment and ID. Systolic blood pressure and ID. Not done checkbox and ID. Specify the reason text box and ID. The result field and the following ID. Result evaluation and ID. And the last field is clinical significance and the following ID. After creating a simple design, we need to specify certain settings for each field. Here, we should pay attention to the fact that the set of field attributes can be different for different field types. Using our form as an example, let's examine each field separately. We see that the choice list field has the following configuration options. Belonging to a group, field ID, name of the field, the text that will display it as the header of the field, SDTM domain allocation and the variable name mapping. Two modes of displaying the field: as a group of radio buttons or as a drop-down list. The position of the label text relative to the field. Width of the label, automatically adjusted or fixed. Layout of the answer choices, vertical or horizontal for radio buttons. A tooltip message text. The field can be hidden initially and be displayed further by a trigger. It can be read-only. It can be made as a required field. Further, we can view the data edit checks created on this field and set up necessary triggers. On this field, we just need to configure the following triggers. In case the answer is no, the date field must be hidden. Likewise, a group of fields must be hidden in case the answer is no, and the text field for specifying the reason must appear. Next, consider some attributes that apply to the text field. Width of the text, automatic or fixed. Width of the text field in lines. Semi-transparent value in an empty field. We can set up an input mask, limit input from the list, or create our own regular expression. We will leave this setting blank for this field. Let's make the field initially hidden, because further it will be displayed by the trigger already set up for the previous field. We can make it read-only. We can make the field mandatory. Let's go to the date field new attributes. Here is the possibility of entering future dates or not. The last setting will be needed when configuring the schedule. At this stage, we will leave it blank. Let's move on to the group of fields new attributes. The group can become a table if you tick this checkbox. Table settings collapsed or expanded. Abstract number of columns within the group. Let's specify 10 here. The group can also be made initially hidden and open further by the trigger. The last setting allows you to specify during which electronic case report form version this group of field was implemented. Next is the default setting of the field enabling on the form. Let's set up necessary triggers. At which field will be open for reason when it's not done, and hide fields for the result. Text field for not done reason. Let's make the field initially hidden, because we have already set up the necessary trigger on the checkbox. Result text field. Let's set up the input mask on the field. Enter a 2 or 3-digit number. Let's make the evaluation field to a drop-down list and enter the corresponding values to the list, normal and abnormal. Let's set up the clinical significant field in the same way and add the values clinically significant and not clinically significant. Also, let's make the field hidden. There is still need to add a trigger to the test result field, where the clinical significance field should appear in case you choose abnormal. After configuring the fields and triggers, we can preview the form design. The Preview tab, here and here, allows you to see how the forms will look in the system. If adjustments need to be made, we need to go back to Form Edit mode. Also, please note that the verification of configured triggers at the same time as verification of configured data edit checks is performed on the investigator side. If the created form should be present on several visits, you can link it to the necessary visits in the Linked Visits tab by clicking the link icon. Linking forms on other visits allows you to create a copy of the form on other visits. Such forms retain a legacy link to the main form. Such forms cannot be edited except for data edit checks. Changes to the main form are immediately inherited by all linked forms. Once the form design and linking to other visits are ready, you can start creating automated checks. The functionality to create checks is situated on the investigator side. To do this, go to the investigator side of the testing environment. Open the required project, create a new subject and open the necessary form for its further testing and setting up data edit checks. That's all. Thank you for your attention.